I'd like to welcome all of you to the second golf information presentation that we've had. A large crowd here, and I thank you for coming up. Must be a topic that you have some interest in, so we will be glad to share information with you. Many of you were here last March when Matt and Paul made a similar presentation. Matt talked about the golf activities at the time that he had going on and the ones that were planned. Paul talked about the condition of the course at that time and what his plans through the summer were, and we've seen some of the results of that. He'll be talking more about that. I'd like to remind you that we've only owned these courses a year and a half. I know there's some anxiousness, some eagerness, some lack of patience possibly would be another way to say it. But sometimes it's just hard to get Mother Nature to cooperate. But we're all pointed the right direction. You'll hear more about that here soon. But that's all the time we've had these professionals with us as well. A year and a half is about it. And we were impressed with them when we were first introduced to them, and we're even more impressed now. Matt and Mike have been great assets for us. They provided us very helpful and pleasant staff, something we weren't necessarily used to before. Some of you have benefited from the golf lessons that they've given you. Some are still scratching your head as to why your game hasn't come around, but keep working at it. We bought golf equipment, we bought clothes from them, and they just always seem to be present at our golf activities with a smile on their face and very helpful, and we do appreciate that, definitely. Paul and his staff have worked extremely hard in the face of tough conditions to upgrade and improve our courses. They've set the stage for a long-term improvement plan for both courses, and you'll hear more about that coming up as well. Matt and Paul will be telling us what they're working on now and will be working on through the winter and into the spring. At the end of their remarks, you'll have the opportunity to ask them some questions, unless you don't have any. They will give you the best answers they have. If you don't understand their answer, you can ask them to clarify. If you don't like their answer, would like to discuss it further. Remember, this isn't a forum here for that. One thing that I found is all three of them are very approachable. They love to talk about golf, they love to talk about what they do, and they're here to please everybody that they work for, and that includes all of you. So the time to expand on any questions, concerns you have, I think would be outside of this forum. So no debates here. If you have a compliment for them, I'm sure they'd love to hear it. Doesn't always happen, but remember how well things look now compared to what they used to look like. We are filming the presentation over here. It'll be available for those who couldn't make it today or those who'd like to review it. And more information will be sent out through your golf groups and through the public so that you can tell people that they can tune in on this through YouTube, I guess, is probably the way it's going to go. More information will be coming on that. So let's get started, and we'll start with Matt.
All right, thanks, Al. I appreciate it. I'm a roamer, so I'm not going to stand behind the podium. I hope you guys don't mind. First and foremost, welcome. Appreciate all you guys coming out, taking some time out of your afternoon to come chat with Paul, Mike, and myself. We're looking forward to a good discussion and giving you guys some information. Go back one more. Let's kind of talk real quickly about what we're going to go through today. Myself, I'm gonna talk a little bit about the organizational chart. I think there's some misconceptions out there that I think can be quickly disparaged, so to say. And then we're going to talk about some things we've done in 2019, some things we'll continue to do, and then throughout the rest of 2019 and into 2020. Go ahead. All right, so let's talk about that organizational chart. So at the top of the pyramid is Damon Williams. So if Paul or myself have any challenges, any questions, need some direction, we go directly to Damon. We find Damon is very approachable. He's got a wealth of knowledge in the golf business as he's been in for quite some time. And he's a good guy to bounce some ideas off of because of his experience. So again, Paul and I go directly to Damon. Now, with that said, there are some people in the community, some people in the room that this may come to a shock to, but this guy doesn't report to me. So Paul and I work really closely together, and to be perfectly honest with you, I've been in situations where the golf professional superintendent relationship is pretty terrible. And I've been in a situation like working with a guy like Paul where our relationship is really good. We've worked together at several facilities over the course of the last, 8 or 9 years? Yeah, going on 10 here pretty quick. And Paul and I have become friends outside of work too, and gotten to know a lot about our families and all that good stuff. So I'm glad to have him here. And then Mike is our other golf professional. He reports directly to me, so if anybody has any challenges with Mike, which I know there's a lot of them. Right, he's a Vikings fan, so it can't be real good. Go ahead. Right. All right, so let's talk about some things we've done in 2019 and some things we will continue to do moving forward. One of the things that we do a lot of is work with the golf committee. So Al's on our golf committee. We've got some other members here. Terry, our chair. Grant's here. Gordon's here. Joe Helms, I saw someplace. If there's anybody I'm missing, I'm sorry. But working with the golf committee is a big thing for Mike, myself, and Paul. Some of the things that we've kind of worked, some projects we worked with them, the tee trials. So moving up that darn green tee on number 10 for the guys and those red and yellow tees on number 10 for the ladies at the preserve. I know some people like them, some don't, but that's why we run those trials and get that feedback, right? Let's see here. Every year, last year and this year as well, we talk about our quote-unquote membership offerings. So we don't quite have that information to be public yet, but we're working with the HOA board to finalize that stuff. I can say there's a possibility of some new annual pass programs and a new punch card program that is a possibility will be coming soon. Revenue generation is a big deal. So we've got some great volunteers on that committee. Larry McNamee, who is here as well. He was a volunteer to help with that program that Gordon and, was there anybody else, Gordon? I'm sorry. It was just you and Larry, and then Terry was obviously involved as well. But those guys pounded the pavement, and they went out and talked to a lot of the local hotels, resorts, to try and kind of put us in the front of their mind when their guests are asking for a place to play golf. So that's a big deal. On that same topic, outside play, Mike and I have been working with some local, like Southern Arizona Men's Association. We had a group recently, Chicks with Sticks, that was kind of cool. So working with small groups like that to try and drive some outside play to drive some revenue. Our $5 Fridays have been kind of sporadic throughout the summer months. It's been difficult with some time away, whether it be some of our folks in the golf shop where Mike and I can't get away, or Mike's gone, or I step away for a short time. But those will continue throughout the winter. Couples golf is a big deal that we've worked on with the golf committee. Dan Oshino is here someplace. Where are you at, Dan? Oh, right in front of me. Sorry. Dan's been a big help with that, as well as Gordon Elliott, to kind of keep that going, and really they took some stuff off of Mike and I's plate so that we can keep those couples events moving. And I'd say they've been pretty successful. Had some great resident events, red, white, and blue tournament. We had 68 players on the 4th of July. It's the second time we've done that. I had to tell Mr. Cambick that the Men's Association wasn't playing that day because it was a Thursday and we wanted to host the red, white, and blue event. Appreciate your guys' support in that as well. We had a little tiny event this past Monday called Patriot Golf Day, Folds of Honor. Is everybody familiar with that? So for those of you not familiar with that, Patriot Golf Day is an initiative that was started by the PGA of America, if I remember correctly. Folds of Honor is an organization started by, is it Lieutenant? Major Dan Rooney. It's a long story. You guys go home and Google Folds of Honor. It is an awesome organization, but the gist of it is that for every $5,000 that an organization raises and provides to Folds of Honor, one 4-year scholarship is provided to a child of a family of a military member that has been either lost or severely injured. So with that said, and we just got a couple more checks today, we're over $12,000 that we raised just over the course of the last 7 weeks. So that gets us at least 2 scholarships and well on our way to a 3rd. So that's I said it the other day at the event, but that's a true testament of this community and how many people are willing to help and support, and honestly help some people that they deserve our help, because they're doing a lot of things that we don't want to do, so that we can do the things here every day. Okay. So thank you so much. Get Golf Ready. Get Golf Ready was a program that we, another PGA initiative that we kind of started moving forward with in late fall last year, I believe it was, wasn't it? Yeah, winter months basically. But it's all about bringing new players to the game of golf, and it's been a great program. I mean, we've been able to actually drive a little bit of revenue out of it, which was really nice. But it's all about bringing more people to the game of golf so that they can enjoy themselves, they can enjoy the facilities here as residents. All vendor demo day. We had a great all vendor demo day in February, even though it looked like it was going to be nasty and rainy, and I think it stopped raining about 30 minutes before it was supposed to start, so it was almost a bust. But it was very busy for the 4.5 to 5 hours that we were available, and generated just over $25,000 in sales that day. So I give you these revenue numbers because every time we talk about those are numbers that support the operation, so that hopefully we can have as little of a financial impact on you folks. Okay. And then Christmas balloon sale. How many of you were here for that? It was kind of fun, right? Pick out what you want, pop that balloon. Had some cookies and sparkling juice. It was kind of fun. So, Al made a good point. We like to talk about golf. We like to talk about you guys. We like to talk about ourselves, but we like to have fun here. So these are all things that are hopefully you guys can have some fun with, and we will too. So basically that's about all I have. We're going to jump into Paul's section. For those of you that don't know Paul, this is Paul Halleck. He's our Director of Golf Course Maintenance. And we're going to turn it over to him, so thank you.
Okay, how was everyone today? All right, take it easy on me. Here we go. Go ahead, Mr. Carpy. So we're going to go through a bunch of slides in the beginning that start with other things that maybe everyone in the room doesn't see, right? Some of the stuff behind the scenes that I also take care of for the golf courses, which at the end of the day are going to help us get to where we want to go on this journey. So if you want to go to the next one, I'll talk about them as you put up the pictures. All right, so we did a complete satellite upgrade. We did this year at Mountain View. That's Jose Chavez, my assistant. He's sitting in front of an old satellite, and we built kind of a makeshift tent, as you can see, because it was in the middle of the snowy period when we started this operation. So that whole thing comes out, and we put in new ones. That was roughly a $165,000 project that we did all the labor in-house for. So that's a big project we did at Mountain View. That gives the irrigation the best chance we got to move forward, because in those satellites there was enough room to have almost every single head on the golf course as individual control. So if I drive up to, say, the first fairway and I say fairway, the 12th head on fairway 1 needs to be watered, I can turn that head on by itself and not water the whole fairway. All right, so this helps us be as efficient as possible with water, which is going to be a huge thing moving forward for everyone, whether we like it or not. That's what it looks like up on top. So when you open the plastic box, excuse me, that's what it looks like. So we can control everything from there. It also, I don't have a picture of it, but it runs off a computer central that's located in the office. So we program the computer. The computer updates roughly 37 of those in the field, and then they do the prescribed water for each and every day. We adjust on the watering system almost every day of the week. There's no set it and forget it, where we see a wet spot, we try to dry it up. We see a dry spot, we try to make it a little bit more moist. So this is the chemical buildings that we upgraded. We didn't really have specific chemical buildings at either shop, so this is one of the things we took upon this year to get done out of the reserve funding. This was roughly a $100,000 project for 2 chemical buildings. There it is at Mountain View. We actually had to crane it over the shop to get it into position. There it is sitting on the pad. Those will get us up to code with fire codes, and with the big side that you see on the left, we have signs now in place, but that's for the liquid fertilizer storage, and the picture doesn't capture it, but that's a door on the right. That is where the chemical storage is. We don't use as many fungicides, herbicides as we do fertilizer, hence the fertilizer side's bigger. We also did some gate renovations at the Mountain View shop. This was a homeowner-driven project. They had requested that these gates were looking a little bit old and ratty, which they were 100% right. So that is the south gate that we actually had to take all the way off and put the whole thing back on. The track and all concrete, the whole 9 yards. And the one on the north side really just had to be refurbished and painted. I don't think I have a picture of that one in there. But that was roughly a $15,000 project just between the 2 of those also. Wall expansion at the Mountain View shop. You can kind of see the different colors of the blocks for the top 6 courses in that picture. That was also a homeowner driven project, because they could see in the advent of time some of the mowers get taller, bigger, wider. Our mowers have actually outgrown the top of the wall, so you could see the canopies and the roof sticking over the wall. So it was either no canopies and roofs, or the wall goes up so we hide them when we park at night. So the wall went up 6 courses on that. That was roughly a $5,000 project. So here's the big one. Pump station, Mountain View number 8. This guy was 25 years old, had seen better days. He failed on us sometime, I think it was roughly end of March, early April timing. And we had to get this approved as some emergency funds to put in a new pump station. It is currently in 100% operational. It's all computer controlled. It's one of the most efficient pump stations you could buy, which will also help with the watering efficiency and moving forward with more and more water restrictions that will be coming. This is the filter that's on it. I got a bunch, probably 4 or 5 slides here of the different pictures of it going in. If you want to scroll, that's fine. It's going actually into the wet well, so that shaft and pump head is roughly 25 feet in height. So he's roughly, excuse me, halfway into the well. So that sits down in the wet well, and the pond level feeds into the wet well, and we pump the water from there up to PSI and send it out to the golf course. That's the new pump station control panel. That's where all the computers are. There's actually 4 pumps and motors on this pump station, and there are 3 VFDs. Simple, short answer for a VFD is it's a computer that controls each motor for demand. So if I demand 15 gallons a minute, a small pump will come on and run for 15 gallons a minute. If I demand 1,500 gallons a minute, it'll adjust to the 1,500 gallons a minute in real time. This is just some more of the installation. And that's when it was finalized, and that's the touch screen. So it's up and running. 115 PSI in the parentheses, that's what the static pressure is. We were testing it at that time. We were running 312 gallons a minute, 116 PSI. only running at about 83% efficiency for 1 pump out of 4. So that pump station there will do, it's rated for 1,500 gallons a minute at 115 PSI. During the test, we had it up to about 1,750 gallons a minute and held the 115 PSI, which is great. We'll never run it that high, but it's strong and it can do it. So this is another project we took on that maybe no one sees, or maybe if they get near the ponds, they do see. We stocked some white Amur fish to help with weed control, which will also help other aspects of the pond, algae blooms, the whole 9 yards. We did all 4 ponds, so there's 2 ponds at Mountain View and there's 2 ponds at the preserve. We fully stocked those. They're all stocked based on size, so I measured square footage, and that's how they prescribe the right amount of fish to stock in those ponds. Oh, carpet killed it. Good thing we have Ruslan. So the fish are stocked. They eat the weeds, hopefully keep the algae down. Some of that will be big for us moving forward, since one of the big items at the preserve is it used to be pretty much well water around the clock, and now it's pretty much effluent / reclaimed water around the clock. We get technically 100% of all the effluent that we need to fill that pond. So preserve is pretty much on a year-round basis. I'm just going to throw out a number of, say, 90% effluent and 10% well water. That's what it's watered with. All right, let's talk about some of the environmental impacts that we have dealt with, struggled through, all the above this past season. Weather had a huge impact, right? I mean, there's the snow on the mountain. There's the snow on February 22nd that blanketed the whole preserve. I can't remember the exact, but I think we were closed at least 3 days because of that. There's more snow on the 6th hole at the preserve. So this leads us to the weather highlights. All this stuff is pulled right off the NOAA website for the government weather in Tucson. So all these, I just grabbed some highlights I wanted to discuss or make everyone aware of, and I put them up here. So winter 2018-19, it was the 14th snowiest and 15th wettest on record. It was the first winter since 94-95 with all 3 months recording above normal precipitation. That's December, January, February. Those are the winter months in our area. So then we move into the summer climate. It was the 2nd warmest and 19th driest on record. We've had 30 days with highs of 105 or warmer, 6th highest summer total on record. June was the coolest since 2009. July was the 3rd warmest and 25th driest on record. It's the 3rd warmest calendar month on record since they started recording this data. That's 3rd overall of all the months, not just July's, of all the months. It was the 3rd highest July total for triple-digit highs also. And then as of this morning, I updated the August stuff because it just came on. It has been the 2nd warmest August and 45th driest. It was the 2nd warmest August high temperature on record occurs on the 21st. So that means on the 21st, that was the 2nd warmest high temperature that's ever occurred in August since they've been recording that data. So here's some more stats for July. This all has to do with different temperatures, and just so you can see the departures and where we stand, and this will all feed into the plan and the whole 9 yards. So 3.9 degrees up, doesn't seem like much, but global warming, they're concerned with like 1 degree, so a 3.9 is pretty huge. Average low temperature was plus 2.6. The average daily temperature was over 3 degrees warmer. We had plus 8 on days 100 degrees or warmer. We hit 105 plus 6 from normal, and we're only plus 1 on 110, thank goodness. Rainfall, we were a negative 1.18 inches. inches for the month. In August, more of the same, but higher. Average high temperature was 4.5 degrees warmer. Low temperature was 3.3 warmer. The average was 4 degrees higher. We were also +8 with 100-degree days. We were +7 on 105-degree days, and still only +1 at 110 or more. But we were also negative in rain, 0.82 inches. So a summary of the weather. Mother Nature did not cooperate in our region. It went from the wettest winter to kind of a false transition period, late April, early May, back to a cool June, and then pretty much breakneck right into the heat without any rain to help temper any of that enthusiasm. So most courses of the air struggle in some way, shape, or form with transition issues. It's just a fact. I talked to a lot of people around, and most everyone struggled some way, shape, or form. To summarize the best hypothesis of what happened, the overly wet winter period left vast affected areas in the middle of some fairways and low areas, saturated probably in the top 1 to 2 inch region for a long period of time. A long period of time meaning that area maybe went more than days, maybe weeks without drying out and was just saturated. It technically caused the Bermuda plants that reside in that 1 inch to rot, right? So they're residing in a wet, moist area for too long. They kind of festered and rotted, and some of them died back. So any plant that was in a weakened state already didn't have a fighting chance. The healthy stuff had a fighting chance. So we had that false transition period that I talked about from late April to early May, caused the weakened Bermuda grass to begin to break dormancy. The thing about Bermuda grass is it has enough stored energy through the winter to break dormancy once. And that's a healthy plant. So plants that aren't healthy, when you get the false transition, they start to break dormancy, and then they go dormant again, you're really, really going to struggle with those plants. So when we got to the traditional transition period, we're already severely weakened and thinned in a lot of areas. The areas we can see. I know all the areas, just like probably 90% of the room does. And the result is what we currently see. And then to back all that up, as we weren't behind the 8 ball enough, we're down roughly 2.5 inches of monsoon rain also this monsoon season. So beyond all that, we'll go into some of the strategies we had and that we employed. So the 2019 transition strategy was to remove the overseed/volunteer grasses. That's Poa-annua and clumpy rye, the volunteer grasses. Those will grow year in, year out, right? So some of that stuff is there. It warms up, it gets going, you spray it, it goes away, it comes back. It's a never-ending battle. So we used both a chemical and mechanical transition activity. By chemical, we mean the spraying of herbicides that specifically target cool season grasses and weeds. It has little to no long-term adverse effect on the Bermuda grass base. At times, some of the chemicals are a little bit more harsh than others, and they can stunt. Depends what time of the year it is. Some of them do root prune, depending on what time of the year it is. But for the most part, the long-term adverse effect is worth the effect you get by weeding out the cool season grasses and the weeds. Mechanical transition employs aerification, verticutting, grooming, brushing, the lowering of heights, etc. All that stuff that we do with our aerifications. We do it before aerification, light verticutting, grooming, brushing. The newer mowing technology that we have does have groomers pretty much on everything, so we can brush and groom while we mow. It's not a different machine. So sometimes people are like, I don't see you grooming. That's because at the same time we're mowing, we're grooming. Sometimes. It's not always in place, but it is. The same thing with the brushing. And the blades are interchangeable. Sometimes you can put a mild verticut blade in instead of a brush, or a brush into those mowers. And then the other part of the strategy, we control the water and fertility inputs that are targeted to making the Bermuda grass base healthier. So that was our transition strategy. Our aerification strategy for this year was to relieve compaction, assist in air/gas exchange, and to help with water infiltration into the soil. 2 conventional aerifications were planned at each course for all the grassed play areas. That's wall-to-wall grass. Rough we also did twice. Some of this is new to this property, some isn't. I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but I have had people tell me they spot aerified in the past and they hadn't, so I don't know, but this is the plan that we employ. There was a minimum of 2 deep tine aerifications on the greens at each course. The deep tine is a solid tine, roughly 5/8 of an inch in width, and it goes 8 to 9 inches deep into the soil on the greens. Depending on how compact the greens are, how hard they are, that's what the depth is. We have it set at max depth. Max depth's like 9 inches. Some of them were 9 and some were a little bit less. We were going to implement a consistent fairway and rough aerification program on both courses, which we did. We were going to top dress greens consistently, and other areas of play, such as tees and fairways, we would top dress as needed or as resources would allow. So if there's a bare area on a tee or a fairway, we might spot top dress that area to help it, or there's a hole tee's bad, we could spot top dress that tee. We did not do every tee wall to wall or every fairway wall to wall. We did spread a lot of sand though. So the transition execution, they're a little bit different between the courses, but they're a lot the same. So Mountain View was chemically transitioned the week of 4/29, right in that false transition period, right? So Mountain View was pretty easy to see what we had to do from when I came on board, and I seen it for the summer before. So the strategy was to chemically transition that early, try to gauge what we had, and then make a plan and work the plan moving forward for the sodding and sprigging of stuff. Preserve was chemically transitioned a little later, but the week before the holiday is when we chemically transitioned that. That's roughly the same time we did it last year. It could be off a few days either way, but roughly the same time as last year. So greens at both courses were treated with the same chemistry at same rates. So that means what you see at Mountain View and what you see at Preserve, they both were sprayed with the same chemical for transition and at the same rate, just different timing. The Mountain View fairways, tees, and roughs were also treated with a faster acting chemistry that, depending on the temperature variations, can remove the overseed, the volunteer grass within 7 to 10 days. That was the strategy so that we could see what was left with the Bermuda and move forward with the sodding and the sprigging, which we attacked the sod on the rough immediately. I think we had 95% of the rough sodded by June 1st, and then we went to the fairways and the sprigging aspects of it. The Preserve fairways roughs were treated with a slowing acting chemistry, and depending on the temperature variations, we remove the overseed, the volunteer grass within 30 days. That window was very tight, and it kind of just dragged on forever. Like if you go out on Preserve now, we still have some ryegrass that decided to make it through everything we did to it. And that's typical of these weird years where you have tough transitions and you have to supplement a lot of rain and supplement a lot of water because of the lack of rain. And irrigation is a lot harder to control. When the rain comes across, it usually rains 100% across a fairway. Sometimes it splits it in half, but at the end of the day, the rain is definitely more efficient of a watering source than irrigation. The heights of cut were also lowered at both courses within acceptable limits to help transition. Fairways and tees is on average 30 to 35% lower than winter height, timing based on Bermuda grass green up. So for us, it's not too difficult to see when Bermuda grass green up is because we do not overseed the rough. So the minute the rough starts to turn green, it's a good indicator that if we didn't overseed the fairways and tees, that they would also be turning green. and that's about the time you start to employ mechanical transition strategies. Mild, depending on temperatures, because you still need temperature and soil temperature, but that's when you start to bring the heights down because you want to thin the canopy. So the aerification execution. Preserve was aerified the weeks of 5/27 and 7/8. Mountain View was aerified 6/3 and 7/15. Both courses followed almost the identical process for aerification. It included the deep tine aerification I talked about. That'll help us to establish a deeper Bermuda grass root mass on the greens, which will make a lot of stuff over winter and take, at Mountain View, we're not overseed on the greens, so it just helps the root mass. Up at Preserve, it'll also help the root mass to be a stronger Bermuda grass-based plant moving forward, even though we overseed into it. Aerification also aids in the mechanical removal, right? It's part of that mechanical removal transition piece. And it helps to thin or remove any remaining cool season grasses. Nothing's 100%. It's just like when you go to the doctor, sometimes the medicine works, and sometimes you have to go back and get more medicine. It's the same thing with the turf grass. It's a living, breathing organism. Because one plant is strong doesn't mean the plant that sits next to it is just as strong. So things are going to all react a little bit different to genetics, and that's just how it is. Top dressing was performed on greens consistently with aerification. Like I said, the weak, thin spots on fairways and tees were on as needed or when we had the resources available to do that. So this is a little assessment I did on August 27th. We got the wrong date up there. Yeah, but not back in 2010. That being said, this was my honest assessment of greens, tees, fairways, and rough. No strings attached, no strings pulled. I just drove around and said, what do I see? It's pretty simple, right? 1, 4, 6 for the greens up there. Red to me at the Preserve. 2 was red in the beginning. I think we kicked it to the amber status. I think the rest of the greens on that slide would be green to me. You can scroll across to 4 and 6 on the fairways. I just said they were also unacceptable in red. Go to the back. Next one. Here's the back 9 at Preserve. Same assessment. 10 fairway, 16 fairway, 17 fairway, 18 fairway. The culprits we all know about. 14 I had in the amber range. And so that was my assessment on the Preserve. I also did the same assessment for Mountain View. Mountain View, I think we're in much better shape, thanks to the hard work that we've put in and the resources we've thrown at it. I think on this page, as you can see, I have no red. I have some amber status. I still do not like the 3rd fairway or the 3rd tees. I think that's traditionally been one of the worst fairways on that whole golf course. I do not like 5 and 6, even though they've been sprigged. They're a little bit slow. The tees on 8, the javelina love, and they root right in the middle of that every fall, no matter what we do. So that one gets the amber status from me also. And here's the back 9. Fairways 11, I gave an amber because the front half of 11 is slower to react than the second half. The second half is really nice. If the whole 11 looked like the second half of 11, it wouldn't be amber. On 5 and 11, we have some irrigation and drainage issues. Just weird spacing, funky overlap for the sprinkler heads, drains that aren't in the right place. So that's why we struggle with those 2 holes a little. And then 18 fairway is also on my amber list. It didn't make the cut for the 6 fairways we sprigged. If there was a 7th fairway, it would have been number 18. So let's talk about some of the steps we have taken, right? So I drive on the golf courses every day. Matt and I have a lot of conversations about what's going on and what's good and what's bad. We're not blind to all this. I'm definitely not blind to it. I think I heard the comment the other day about turning people away. I've had guys call me from the industry that wanted to play, and I said, this is probably not the year to come play my golf course. Right? So we know we've got some work to do, but The steps we have taken have gone a long way, and we're, in the maintenance department, we're pretty happy of these steps and the results that have come out of taking these steps. So we've installed sod on over 2.5 acres of area combined on both golf courses. That's like 175 pallets of sod. If anyone has, yeah, there you go. If anyone has seen that, that's been everywhere, right? They deliver it in the wrong spot. I've had to chase it down in front of people's houses because they didn't deliver it in the right spot. I told them to deliver 10 pallets to one area. I go there in the morning and it's not there. It's over at HOA 1. So some of this stuff gets crazy. 175 pallets and counting because we're still sodding. We sprigged 10 acres of fairways at Mountain View. So those were the 6 fairways that everyone, I think, knows, the ones we sprigged. I've also implemented a soil testing program for greens at both courses. So all the greens, not the practice greens, but all the on-course greens. And select indicator fairways at both courses. The select indicator fairways are fairways that had been previously tested. So there was some test results that I had in hand from when I inherited this place. I retested those fairways to try to gauge how we were doing with the soil and the amendments we had made and where we needed to go. It would have probably put me back another season or two to try to just go out and pick the fairways I wanted to test, get the baseline results, and then move forward. So technically what I did is I took what they had for results before, used them as my baseline, put a program in place to try to change some items, and then we retested those same fairways. So we adapt and we adjust control products and the applications based on soil test results. So control products are a whole bunch of stuff that just get lumped into one kind of catchphrase. It's fertilizer, it's wetting agents, it's herbicides, it's fungicides, it's insecticides. It's all to control what we want for the end result, which is the healthy Bermuda base. We adapt and adjust current strategies to our region's climate change and how that will affect transition and overseed timings in the future. If you ask me, the climate's changed a little. Maybe we need to push overseed further into the fall in traditional times. I think we have to be wise in our decisions, and that stuff takes a year to enact those changes. So Matt and I sit down, and we already technically have thought about aerifications and overseeds for 2020, and he starts to work the golf schedule around that. So I can't just go to him today unless we have some really major weather issues during an overseed and just be like, I need to be closed for an extra week, or I want to change the overseed from September 16th to October 1st. It just doesn't work that simple, right? We're a team, we got to work together. Sometimes the greater picture is what we're trying to strive for, and sometimes it works good for me, not so good for me, good for him, not so good for him. It's give and take. We also did numerous side projects that were pictured, not pictured, that will help shape our golf courses positively moving forward. And that's what it's all about, right? I don't want to go backwards any more than we have to. We had to hit the bottom line, and then we're going to step up from there, and that's the way we're going. That's the way we're progressing. So this is some of the stuff we did. Like I said, over 175 pallets of sod we installed at both Mountain View and Preserve. I extended the resources and beyond the resources on that project. Don't let Damon hear that if he's hiding out in the back. There's some sod that was installed. You can see for the people looking very close that the ring around the green was installed first, and then the second wave of sod we installed the little fairway patch in the front middle of that slide. This is a hydro sprigging that we did on 5, 6, 11, 12, 15, and 16. That was actually all sprayed through a gun and a nozzle. They mix it all up on site. It's a mulch and a blend of water and the sprigs. And we had a prescribed rate of bushels that we went out at, and they went and they sprayed all those fairways. So this was, you can see they were growing in. And when they spray it, they kind of lump up on top. That's why you have that bumpy type appearance. Some of that's the mulch too. The actual stolons and sprigs fall down. But you can see where the thin areas were, like this little guy here in the front, who's obviously thin, it has more mulch stuck to it. Out in the middle, it wasn't too bad, so they didn't apply as much. So it was more, they did the whole fairway, but we did it as needed. So that was 11 fairway before sprigging. This is 11 with the sprigs growing in. I tried the best I could to get in there the same spot for the pictures. I didn't have a GPS location or anything funny like that, but I tried to at least represent the same type of view. So you can see the vast difference between when it was unsprigged and then when the actual sprigs were growing in. There's 16 before sprigging. You can see the whole middle pretty much is non-existent. There we go again. My picture's a little tighter, but that represents the middle. We still have a little thin spot right there in the middle left of that slide. A little bit up on the right middle also, near the edge of the fairway, but that's to be expected. Like I said, all this stuff you just don't put it on the ground and it grows at the same rate. It all is gonna be on its own and grow a little bit different. Some is gonna be super aggressive and go like mad, and then some takes a little bit longer. So we're going to move on to what our overseeding strategy is for this season. And we're already started at the preserve. I mean, we're less than 2 weeks away. Wish it was 4 weeks away, but it's 2 weeks away. We need to start to slow down the growth of Bermuda grass with a growth regulator. That's a spray application, that's a control product. We're lowering the mowing heights roughly 14 to 21 days in advance of actual overseed. That is about as much of the mechanical aspect that we perform before overseed. In the old days, you used to carve it up to dirt, rip pretty much all the grass up, and then throw the seed down. We don't do that anymore because we're trying to have a healthy Bermuda grass base. So we're walking the fine line between doing just enough to get a good overseed, but not too much that we destroy the Bermuda 100%. Whether we like it or not, overseeding into Bermuda grass is not a great thing. It's always going to have Bermuda grass decline. The number's 10%. If anyone has done any reading, 10% a year, you're gonna, in an overseeded Bermuda turf, you'll technically lose 10% of your Bermuda grass base every year. Preserve will close for overseed on the 16th. It's 6 days later than 2018. I don't remember the dates that Matt and I discussed for 2020, but I think it's another 6 days later than this year. So we're trying to slide it back and find that happy medium. The only thing we have to remember is that we have the 2 courses and playability to also consider. I know we try to do one and have one open for play, and then when the other one opens, close the other one. I think that's pretty standard. I think some overlap has happened in the past. I think some other courses in the area do some overlap. To me, I think it makes more sense to always have a golf course to play. So if we were going to try to squish that and say do it all in October, we would have to have an overlap period of 7 to 10 days, somewhere in the middle where we'd have no golf, and I don't think Matt would like that. He's my voice of reason on that. So on preserve, we will not overseed the fairways and colors on holes 4, 6, and 14. Some ask why those. 4, 6, definitely we're on my red, and I think we can have some big wins on those holes by not overseeding and employ some sodding and some work in the fall, and the same at 14. I would liken those to the par 3s that we didn't do at Mountain View. So if everyone remembers, we didn't overseed the par 3s also this past season at Mountain View, along with the other couple of holes. And I think pound for pound, 4, 8, 13, and 17 were probably 4 of our best fairways coming into the spring. Right? We didn't overseed those. So we're hoping for the same and planning for the same on 4, 6, and 14. All other essential parts of the overseed will remain the same as 2018. So pretty much everything else is about the same except those minor changes. So this is the big one that we changed up this year. There's some big changes, major changes to the Mountain View overseeding strategy. we'll start to slow down the growth of Bermuda grass on the planned areas also. That'll only be tees, range tees, and the range fairway, so not much activity there for the growth regulator. It'll close on the 7th. It's 6 days technically later than we did in 2018. And we're only going to be closed for a week, seeing how we're only doing the tees and the range fairway. So when we open up, the tees will need some spot watering. We'll water around play. The good thing about it is at least Preserve would be open already, right? So when we open Mountain View back up, there'll be golf down there, I get that, but we'll have the 2 courses to take some of the play. So I think we won't have an issue with spot water and tees. We'll do it around play and have the least impact that we can on golf. There'll probably be some strategies of multiple tee markers at single tee boxes, let some tees grow in, maybe have to go back in and redo a little spot here or there. But we have some strategies, some thoughts in place for those type of problems that may or may not arise. Knowing how this summer's gone, every problem's gonna arise. So we would continue to evaluate the start date of the overseed for the future, right? And I already talked about this, climate change, it's happening all around the world, right? So I think we can slide deeper into September, but the moment we go too far, Mother Nature's going to remind us we went too far, and we're going to have one of those tough goes at an overseed. We have 2 courses and playability to consider, and that's where I lean on Matt and Mike for that stuff. I'm a nuts and bolts guy, and they kind of keep me level-headed and informed about what we got to do for golf. We will not overseed any greens, fairways, collars, or rough at Mountain View. I think everyone understands that. We will overseed all the tees, and the south range tees and the range fairway. The only reason we're doing the range fairway is for aesthetics. I mean, no one plays off the range fairway, you just hit into it, but it's more for aesthetics, just so you can go to the range tee, look at it, and it looks nice. Yeah, also, he's right on that. If we didn't oversee a lot of golf balls might make their way to the desert edges. So it'll maximize our growing season for Bermuda grass at Mountain View. So if you think about it, we didn't overseed a bunch of areas last year. So those areas have been growing Bermuda grass all the way until now. We're going to go dormant sometime Thanksgiving-ish, give or take, for the Bermuda grass. Hardly anything will be overseeded this winter. Come March, April, May, whenever it decides to wake back up, we'll be growing Bermuda grass straight up again, 100%, all the way until the planned overseed of next year. So that technically, on some areas, gives us 2 full seasons of growth to try to recover and make our Bermuda grass base healthier, better, the whole 9 yards. It also, one of the big things, it's not going to require a transition, right? There'll be some cool season and volunteer grasses that pop up. They do every year. We manage that, right? We spray stuff in the middle of the winter that wipes that stuff out. That's why sometime usually in January the rough is totally tan, but there's no weeds in it. There's no weeds just because they didn't want to grow. There's no weeds because I didn't let them grow, right? We sprayed them and controlled them. So, and we'll do the same stuff wall to wall. So this is going to maximize our Bermuda grass growing season, which is huge, right? This is a huge step for Mountain View. I think everyone would agree it was weak, and there's still some weakness to it. You're going to have to hit it for everyone. So here we go, we're into the wrap-up. We're committed to growing a strong Bermuda grass base on all our playing surfaces. I think I probably beat this horse to death, but it's my platform that I talked about when I was hired on. It's the platform that Damon and I discussed the whole way through. We need to have a strong Bermuda grass base. That piece of the puzzle is the biggest piece. If we get that piece right, it's gonna lead into everything else. So here we go, here's up to the 10% of Bermuda grass base will die every year of an overseed. Those are industry stats, those aren't Paul stats. Bermuda grass needs 100 days minimum of non-competitive growth to properly recover from the previous year's overseed. So what that means is we're overseeding Preserve September 16th. think the date when I did the math backwards was either June 4th or June 6th. If we were in 100% transition by then, we're going worse than 10% backwards, right? So 10% is given that you're going to lose that much every year. If you do not get the 100 days minimum of a non-competitive growth, you're adding to that 10% number. And to be 100% honest with you, the optimum number is 162, which is pie in the sky. We'll never get to that. We can get to 100, but getting to 100 is sliding the overseed further into the fall and picking a transition date to chemically and mechanically transition come hook or crook. Strong Bermuda base will in turn provide better overseed conditions, right? So the overseed is so much easier to grow when you seed into a nice dense fairway. The fairways that are thin, they're going to give us a run for our money. We're going to get them to grow. That's not going to be the end of the world, but it'll take more work, more effort. Despite Mother Nature's lack of full support in 2019, she whacked us in the winter, then again in the summer. I think we experienced great progress at Mountain View. And I'd be the first guy to admit that I think Preserve set back a little. I think we got some good strategies in the works to make future transition and overseed better. The stuff that we're working on through the budget process to try to make this stuff better long term. We're not ready to announce some of this stuff because we're still in the budget process, but there is stuff in the works and being discussed to try to do a lot of this stuff better to get our Bermuda grass base healthier. But everyone's got to remember there is a progression and there's a limit to resources. We just can't go crazy with spending. I think our execution will be aligned with the strategies to achieve the outcome that we want, right? But patience is needed. This will take years to fully recognize, not months. I've been here 18 months. Everything I pretty much inherited last year was what I inherited. We didn't have a great transition this year, I get that, but we still need time and effort to get the job done. I think if you look at Mountain View and the stuff that we have made huge progress on, I don't think it's difficult to add 1 + 1 and get 2, that the Preserve can be the same moving forward. Assessments are moving forward and ever changing with adjustments to programs as diligently as possible. Like I said, I'm out there every day. I ride the courses, we look at stuff, we change all kinds of stuff every day. Some of the days we make 25 different decisions before 5 a.m., right? It might only be one decision after 5 a.m., but before 5 a.m., we might have changed 25 things before we go out the gate. And I think for the three of us speaking, I think this is for all of us here. I mean, we're committed as a team to achieve a higher quality of playing conditions and golfer enjoyment, right? I get it. That's my job. My job is to have good playing conditions. If we have good playing conditions, everyone in here is going to enjoy more and be a lot happier, right? I get it. I'm with these guys. I think we have a great team. These guys support me the whole way. And with that, I think you want the mic, Al? Thank you very much for your time.
All right, we thank both of these gentlemen for making a nice presentation for us to understand what they're trying to accomplish. I only saw one problem in what took place here. If you start removing the excuse of the conditions of the course as to why we're not shooting well, what's left?
The truth. They are the truth.
But I think that's what we're aimed at, and I think that they were going to keep getting better and better and better. Okay, we're going to have a question and answer. We're going to wrap up no later than 3:30. That gives us 30 minutes for a question and answer. We do have a live microphone up here, so if you have any questions, why don't you just come up there, give us your name, and ask your question. How's that?
Check.
Okay, Jack Hammer, the question is for Paul. What's your expectation about what the fairways at the Preserve are going to look like next summer?
I think a reasonable expectation is it's going to be hard to sit there and tell you that they're 100% going to get better through an overseed, right? After everything I just told you about the 10% that we go backwards and all that stuff. So I would say the 10th, the 16th, the 17th, the 18th, the bad ones, our best hope is that they don't get any worse, right? And we maintain, but as I said, there's strategies and plans in place that we just can't announce right now that we're working towards through the budget process to help that.
So, hey Paul, this is Mike Dane Smith. I have a question. We've addressed the grasses and everything, but I haven't heard you address much about the bunkers. And I just want to make a point. I've been in a couple bunkers, and somebody says, well, you just got to move the rocks a little.
Hey, Mike, I think if you're in a lot of bunkers, maybe you should visit your local PGA professional.
Touche. Anyway, but I was thinking particularly number 9. I was in there, and it's like I'd be picking out rocks and pebbles all day. And you know, what are we going to do about addressing our bunker situation?
So there's a long-term plan, right? It's called a reserve study, and there's projects that are in that plan, and bunkers are in there. Don't have the whole thing memorized yet, but I think off the top of my head there's some money set aside for next year, as long as it's approved, to do some bunker work. Yeah, I see the bunkers too. The bunkers are like a 10-year to 15 max life expectancy, so both courses are at the stage that they need new bunkers. There's no doubt about it. But I will go to the other side and say it would be nice to have grass before we had bunkers, right?
Thank you for your presentation.
Also sells new way.
Mark Olson, I've been here 18 years. I've played the courses a lot. And I'm hoping that you guys can do something about the Poana and Mountain View, because quite frankly, 2, 3, 4, 5 are unplayable. I wonder what you're
Unplayable now or the winter?
No, not now.
Okay.
In the winter time, you could not putt and the ball bounced all over the place because the stuff is obviously grows at a different rate.
Yeah, so we employed strategies to control that. They were far better than they were the year when I came on board. When I came for my original site visit, I think it was in March, it might have been early April, I can't remember. But number 2 was horrible, right? When I saw that, I almost passed out too. So yeah, we've employed strategies. I'm very good friends with Mike down here to HOA1, the superintendent down there. We're pretty much on the same program and strategies that he is for his POA, and I think we made a huge gain on it. Now's the easy time of the season, but remember, by not overseeding, that opens up a whole different can of worms that I can employ by not having to worry about killing overseeded grass, right? So technically I'm going to take the gloves off and we'll be in a street fight. How's that sound?
With the Poana.
Yeah, with the Poana. Not you, your question is okay.
Hey, Paul and Mike. I'm Mervyn Walsh. I can see you guys are working very hard and are doing a great job. The question I have is, you're not overseeding Mountain View, but you're overseeding most of the preserve. The question is, does Robeson have any say any longer in that? Is the reason the preserve is not being overseeded because Robeson still has a voice?
Yes, and in fact, I'm going to lean on Damon a little bit, so shake your head if I'm correct. In the purchase agreement, we are required to overseed the preserve, but we can skip, is it 2 or 4 fairways? We can skip, thank you. Okay, so 2 the first year, we can skip 4 the second year. That came from Diane Ashby, so thank you, Diane. So yes, they do have a little input in there, and obviously it's because they're still trying to sell lots, and well, we can all see the activity happening up there. Yes, sir.
I will say that I did talk to RCI about not overseeing Mountain View because we were supposed to continue to oversee Mountain View too for home sales, so to speak. They had no problem with us not overseeing because they've had so many problems at their different courses. Pebble Creek had some severe problems this summer, so they're not going to oversee a lot of their golf holes this coming fall.
Go ahead, Scott.
Hi, Scott Davis. Kind of a follow-up to the very first question. Do you see us having to close a few holes next summer in the preserve like you did Mountain View?
Once again, I think 1 + 1 = 2, and I don't think anything's off the table. We're still working through the budget process and planning, so I think if it's right that we need to, we'll find a way to do what's right.
Okay. At Mountain View, kind of an anomaly for me is you oversee the driving range every year, right?
The range fairway?
Yeah. Well, and the driving hitting area?
The tees? Yes.
Okay. How would you compare that grass to the grass that's on most of the fairways at Mountain View?
Meaning now or post overseas?
In other words, it seems to me that the kind of anomaly that what I'm hitting off on the range is great.
Okay.
And that's overseeded each year.
That back range tee and around that back chipping green is not. We don't oversee that area.
You don't oversee where Matt gives lessons?
Not on the back, on the
front,
south tees we do, but just the tees and.
Right.
So those are.
The warm-up area.
Right, and they're typical of the rest of the tees on the golf course.
How about the fairways?
The fairways, I think, besides the culprits that we had sprigged, are as good a quality or better.
Okay, because it seems to me that the hitting area on the tees are great, and I'm wondering whether it's the soil base or something to why that area, we didn't need to close part of the range. In other words, we closed 6 holes.
Yeah, I mean, Matt and I have talked about there's actually a spot of that range tee we aren't going to oversee on the south tees because it does need to be closed. So there's different things we do at different times. The tees is a much more manageable area, right? It's a small area. At the end of the day, to be honest with you, the tees are less than an acre. Even if every tee on the golf course died, it'd be like $10,000 to sod them all. So I mean, and it's just an easier area to maintain because they're a small area. We use less heavy equipment. The mower's smaller. Overall, for the most part, the irrigation is a little bit better controlled on tees. So it's just a more manageable, smaller area.
Are there any resources that you wish you had?
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
Well, in other words, I don't think us in the room know if you've been fighting this with one hand behind your back. And
Well, I know there's tons of resources everyone would want that's in my position. If that's the question, yeah, of course there is. There's pie in the sky stuff. Is the question, do I have the resources to get the job done? I think we do. I think, like I said, Matt, Damon, and I, we sit and talk. We all know what we need to push forward, and there's hard decisions that are made every year about budgets and the whole 9 yards. Would I like an open checkbook? Yeah, of course I would.
Okay, well, again, for those of us that aren't, and that's fine, I do thank you very much for all your hard work.
Thank you for your questions.
Okay, Paul, I'm Matt.
Hi, Matt. I'm Paul.
Yeah. So, affluent water, well water, we're down a couple of inches of God's water.
Right.
Could you help me understand what the difference, all that, what it means to you?
Huge difference, right? So we can water the golf courses semi-effectively, right? At Mountain View, we have a 25-year-old dinosaur irrigation system. We hooked up a new heart this year for one half of it, but we still have an old heart on the other half, which hopefully we'll get to next year. That's 25-year-old technology. It's just not as efficient as technology is today. Back in the day, it was awesome, right? But that's 25 years ago. Mother Nature, when it rains, it's pretty much widespan. We get the weird things here where it rains on the first hole, but not the 9th hole and stuff like that, right? We all seen this, but pretty much when it rains in a consistent pattern. So if you take an area the size of this carpet and it rains over it, it's pretty much consistent rain. It all gets the same amount of water. It also gets the same amount of acid rain, which everyone knows about acid rain, which technically actually reacts on the soil and helps with the issues that we have. So acid rain for turf is pretty good. Thunder, lightning, also pretty good. Not a huge amount, but when there's lightning in the area, nitrogen fixates from the sky and it releases into the atmosphere, which the grass takes up. I wouldn't base my whole fertilizer input program on nitrogen coming from the sky, but it does help, right? So all this stuff, it's all part of the process. So it's like when you go into battle, you want all your resources. Without Mother Nature helping us with the rain part of the we're, I'm not gonna say we're 50% behind, but maybe we're 30% behind on our resources just right out the gate. If I can't, there's no way, not me, not anybody in the world, we can't make Bermuda grass grow until Mother Nature ticks the boxes, right, for transition. So you need soil temperature, you need air temperature, the whole 9 yards. I can do everything 100% right. I can get the smartest PhD professor in the world, and he can say, you need to apply this on this date, you need to do this on this date. Great. If it doesn't warm up, if the climate's not there, we're not going anywhere. It's going to be the same.
Okay, Jack Hammer again. I've been here for 19 years and I bought an annual membership every year I've been here. I think looking back at 2019, I would have not have bought an annual membership for that year. We're going to be making a decision in the next 6 to 8 weeks as to what we're going to do for 2020. Surprises, we should know ahead of time what's going to happen so we can make an educated choice as to whether an annual membership or not.
So Jack, are you referring to like closures, so on and so forth, conditions? I mean, conditions, I'll be honest with you, I mean, Paul doesn't have a crystal ball, neither do I. What I can tell you is that I know that we've got the right guy to make the place better and continue to get the place better, and he's got a team that he pushes every day to try and get the place as good as possible. Have we had our challenges this year? Absolutely. I don't think anybody is going to stand up here and say that the place is perfect, because it's definitely not. But I think that Paul has a great plan in place, and I think he's going to push his guys to continue to push that plan so that we have the best conditions possible. I know that's not a great answer for you, Jack, and I wish I could give you something better, but I just can't at this point.
Doug Plesha, I live on the 5th at the Preserve, and prior to this I had 12 years at PGA West, where they oversee always the fairways and the greens, sometimes rough. My issue is HOC, height of the cut. Now, I've never heard anything in all of the things that we've said over the last 3 months that said that maybe we lowered the mowers too much to expose dirt and the roots. And Bermuda gets its nourishment from the blade. So what happens is, you know, it either takes longer or you lose. My issue is, if you don't believe that any of that happened, you could do the same thing next year. So I'd like a response to that.
I think the response is in my presentation. We lowered it at industry standard rates, 30 to 35%. So let me throw a couple numbers at you. If we were mowing fairways at ½ an inch, we went down to the 350, 325 range for mowing fairways. Those are probably higher than some guys go in this region. I would say we're higher than most guys go in most regions.
So the exposure of the dirt, especially on the fringes.
The exposure of the dirt had nothing to do with what I was cutting. The exposure of the dirt had to do with, like I talked about, Mother Nature didn't really help us, and Bermuda grass rotted, and we were going to have dirt. Whether I mowed it or let it grow to 6 inches, we were going to have dirt.
That was lower. That's fringes also?
What was that?
Fringes.
Same as, the colors and approaches are cut the same height as fairways. So it's all the same. Both courses the same.
Alan Baumwell, I just had a question regarding the consistency between the speed of the greens at Mountain View and the Preserve. Do you make an attempt to make them the same, or is it possible to make them the same?
Impossible. Okay. So the greens at Mountain View are mini verde and newer cultivar. The greens at Preserve are, 15 years old now, Tiff Dwarf. What you see right now is very consistent with Tiff Dwarf in the summer. It gets ugly looking, it gets leggy, it gets thatchy. Different periods of humidity will make it get scalpy, puffy, the whole 9 yards. All that can be managed, but that's a long-term strategy too, through verticutting, top dressing, the whole 9 yards. They'll never, ever, ever putt the same. We're going to try to get them as similar as possible, but if you put those two greens side by side, they will never, ever be the same.
Hi, I'm Ed Brancaccio, and I see that Bermuda grass needs a minimum of 100 days to, get it growing. Now, a lot of other areas out there need growth, okay, and you haven't sprigged them, but I imagine you're going to do it in the future. Are you considering maybe doing ground under repair for a certain area to give it more time to grow?
I think we'll employ all strategies that are needed. I think the point we're at this year, it was kind of the whole fairway or bust, it seemed like, right? And so the four that are bad at preserve, it's like the whole fairway is bad. We get questions and comments all the time, broke the whole fairway off, a lot of signs. All that, it becomes a maintenance nightmare at times. I think nothing's off the table though. I think we're always going to be objective and try to do what's best for each spot. And I can't sit here and tell you now that that could be a rope and stake or it could be a sign. It could be both. It might be neither. But yeah, I think everything's on the table. We discuss everything.
Okay, I have a second question. Okay, Matt's laughing. Okay, so I know that because Mountain View had so many holes closed this year, we didn't get a chance to play the whole course. Okay. And I know that somebody told me that you were helping people that came in from the outside by charging them lower rates or giving them certain benefits, okay? But as annuals, we didn't get any benefits, even though we had to play both courses that the way they are. So I had told Matt, I said, did you consider, like doing, and I don't know if this would work, okay, so I'm asking you, charge less money for a range card, okay? If you charge less money for a range card, it's very possible that more people would buy a range card, so you would be benefiting. And I don't know how much you would benefit from people coming out and buying a token for the playing. Is that something that would be possible? And you told me that Damon would probably need to be talked to about this.
Yeah, so let me correct something real quick, Ed.
Okay.
So the strategy that we used when we went down to 12 holes was we charged a 9-hole rate for everybody.
Okay.
Okay, so with that being said, I just want to make it very clear that a non-resident never pays less money than a resident. And I just want to make sure that everybody understands that. That's one of the things that Mike and I said that we would be very conscious of the day we set foot on property. Okay, so because I know that's a sensitive subject, right? As far as your idea with the range card, I don't. There's nothing in place at this point. Moving forward, that's the best I can tell you at this point, Ed. I'm sorry, I don't have a better answer for you.
No.
But I appreciate your comment and your suggestion.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, Tom Bean. Diane said we were not going to oversee up to 4 holes at the preserve this coming winter. Why would we choose only 3? And why would those 3 all be par 3s? Why wouldn't we choose the 4 fairways that are the worst and not oversee them?
It's 2 this year, Tom, and then 4 the following year. So it's 2 this year is what I gathered.
I thought it was 2 the first
No,
year
I'm
after
saying-
transition and 4 this year.
Hey, Diane, can you clarify that for me? I'm sorry.
No, without the transition agreement in mind.
Okay.
We did have to negotiate with Rosen because of their over the hill look, how many holes we could oversee or skip oversee. That would be the document I had to tell you. An exact number, what was you looking at?
can you summarize that?
Hang on. So, without the transition, we're gonna look it up and verify the number in the transition agreement, and then we'll get that answer out. That's the gist of it, basically. As far as what we chose to not oversee, I'm gonna pass that over to you.
Yeah, we meaning us are under the assumption it was 2. We didn't choose 2 of the 4 bad ones, 10, 16, 17, or 18, because I've already went past the resources I had available for sod and everything that was budgeted. So just as we did with Mountain View last year, the worst ones we did overseed, and then we picked the strategy up when we transitioned. The same 1 + 1 = 2 mentality could probably be thought about for those 4 holes, that we're gonna oversee them. When we get to transition, hopefully everything goes smoothly through the budget process. We'll have the resources to do what we're gonna do there. And I don't think anything's off the table. Are we gonna be closed? I can't tell you that right now. Are they gonna come out? I mean, we can all hope they come out better. I can't tell you if they're gonna be better or worse also. My thought tells me they're not gonna be better, those 4 holes, but I think we'd be doing a huge disservice to winter golf if we didn't oversee those 4, because there's not much more I can do with them. They're gonna grow in and heal, but they're not gonna heal 100% by this dormancy.
My name is Tom Bright, and I've been here 20 years. I'm a past president of the Men's Association and of the Greens Committee, and I can tell you that the cooperation and the effort put out by Matt in your shop is tremendous. We've been here and we've been struggling for years. I have one question. I'm running out of golf balls. When are you start cutting down in the rough on the preserve?
At least we have too much grass in one area.
I want an answer. See, you're PGA professional. Hey, you okay?
Yeah, go.
Okay, so one of the things you haven't talked about is the things that we can do that help you with fairways.
Right, so Matt and I discuss a myriad of stuff every day. And some of the stuff we sit back and chuckle at. I shot a picture the other day of a golf cart up to the left of one green at Mountain View, and the signs obviously point you to the right to the cart path, right? I drive in and out because I go back and forth to both courses, and I drive into the preserve and I see carts parked right in the middle of the dirt on 10. I think just common sense, right? If we all are in this together and we're all pulling the rope in the same direction, we're thinking about this stuff. Like, if it's dirt, let's stay out of it. The grass will recover better, right? If there's signs for a reason. Matt and I make a good joke that, like, we put up the signs, and if we get 50% of people to follow the signs, we won, right? Because that's about what the strategy is for signs and ropes. And that's why at the end of the day, we also chuckle about signs, ropes, stakes, and that stuff. I know my compadre at HOA1, he paints some crazy yellow lines now. They got him going out in front of his approaches. They had no drive zones. I rode with him maybe 10 days ago, and we had the same chuckle as we were riding because carts were inside the yellow lines. And you know, it's the same thing. I think it's common sense, right? We all want this place to be better. I think we all can do it together and make it better. But I think every little piece helps.
What I really was looking for you to talk to was maximize driving in the rough and getting off the fairway. Yeah. Is that the right strategy?
I think it is. I think just maximizing not driving in the dirt. Some holes that's hard. I'll give you that, right? There's a lot of dirt. But I think if we drive in the healthy grass and stay to the cart path as much as we can, we have pretty nice concrete cart paths, almost wall to wall in every area. And that's what they're there for. I think that overall will help the most.
Good question. With the no overseeding at Mountain View,
Sorry, but everybody needs to hear it.
Yeah, with the, to that point, without overseeing Mountain View, where should the carts be driving?
There's going to be a point in time where we'll probably have to do some directional work with signs in some entry and exit periods, and some holes will take to the traffic better than others, so that'll be a daily adjustment. But I think these guys will tell you, I talk to them every day of the week, whether I'm sitting right next to them or on the phone, so they're going to know what we need and when we need to do it. There'll never be a lapse in communication between the three of us here.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, looking at the front page of 4Ts, there's a couple of spots on there. There's a course condition spot on the left-hand side, and then there's the meat of the front page of 4Ts that we update. Typically Mike updates it, I mean, as early as sometimes 6 a.m., sometimes just a hair earlier. Well, okay, typically earlier, okay. But all of that information comes from Paul, so that's, you know, when I'm driving in at 6 a.m., I start seeing the text messages come back and forth, and that's how, a lot of times that's how we talk to each other. And then we just start disseminating the information out to you guys. Now, it's the old adage of you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make him drink, right? So when we make the announcements and call you guys to the tee and ask to use the 90-degree rule and drive in the rough as much as possible, you know, just whatever help you guys can help us, or whatever, however much of that you guys can do, rather than, like Paul said, you know, drive down the middle of the fairway, park in the dirt spots, blah, blah, blah. It's only going to help us make the facility better.
And again, tough question maybe. So we all drive by HOA 1 and see their green golf course. Fair or unfair comparison, number one. And the second question is, do you have a loose idea, just for managing our expectations, how long it will take, I'll say both courses, to be that green?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit unfair. I think when we started this journey, I had said it was going to be tough, and we had a lot of stuff to accomplish. I think I've spoken pretty freely. I think I'm open about it, and we've all discussed it numerous times that we had a lot of stuff to get done. A couple of the unfair points, I think, like I said, I'm really good friends with Mike at HOA 1. He's been there 10 years running the same program. 8 years ago, he was, excuse me, he was having these same types of meetings, right? There were certain individuals wanted his head on a stick, so to speak. Same stuff. It's growing pains, and we're gonna go through it. But I'm undeterred, right? I mean, this isn't my favorite thing to do, but I'm undeterred, right? I'm sitting up here, I'm answering the questions. I'll make time for anyone who wants to talk to me. It might not be right that second, but if you want to ask me questions, I'm here. I mean, my office is in the pro shop, which is not the most convenient place for a superintendent to be sitting, is in the pro shop, right? And so I'm up at the preserve. I'm right up there. Time frame, I think we're ahead at Mountain View. I think we're winning. We're way more than winning at Mountain View. I think we turned the corner. I think next year, we're going to see how good it can be. Does that mean we've won? No, we're winning. But you got to remember, we're working with 25-year-old infrastructure on a lot of stuff in Mountain View, 15-year-old at Preserve. In golf course years, those are dinosaurs, right? Most of the stuff on golf is replaced in the 15 to 20-year window. Even turf surfaces, they're only going to live so long. The grass dies, and sooner or later, the best part of our job is when we do 175 pallets of sod, I replace that much grass, so it just doesn't all go out at the same time. So now that has another 15-year life cycle. But it's a non-stop churn, and there'll be good years and there'll be bad years. Right now we had a bad transition. I think besides all that, objectively, I think if you go to Mountain View and be real objective about it, right now the greens are really nice. No POA activity, minimal. All the fairways we didn't overseed are really, really good quality. I hesitate to call anything championship quality, but really, really good quality. I think it doesn't take anyone to know too much about the job that I do to just go out and we could go stand in any of the bad fairways and just stand in the bad spot and look to your left, look to your right, and see the rough, right? And what's the rough? And the gentleman back there, he doesn't like the rough, but it's thick and it's lush, right? So, I mean, what's the difference? The difference is we don't overseed the rough, and look at its strive with the programs that I put in place. I think it's a 1+1 scenario. We just need to keep working at it. And I wouldn't, I think Matt will tell you, I'm open, I'm honest, I'm 100%. I mean, if you have a concern or a question, fire away, right? Find me, I'll make time.
And I also want to thank you very much for being part of this town hall, all three of you. It's very nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been a great turnout. It's been great information. One of the reasons we're doing this is so we can stop the rumors that circulate after the round of golf about why is this happening, why isn't this happening. So I think you got straight stuff now. If you go out there and you run into your buddies who think that nothing's happening or they just aren't patient enough, help them out with some information that you heard today. This is a USGA green section, record 3 strikes, and Bermuda grass is out.
I made some copies of just a few things that I find interesting that pertain to our situations. I didn't make enough for the whole room, but there's a few copies of items up there. Most of that stuff in there comes from the USGA. You can go to their website, they have a great course care section. You can read for days and never come out of the computer room or your office.
Okay, we'll try and maybe add a link to this.
I have it on my email too.
Yeah, or we'll add the information to either the course condition update on Saturday or the golf e-blast next Tuesday.
Like I said, the USGA has not only golf stuff, they have a course care section, and go for it. And talk to me in 3 or 4 months when you finally emerge.
Okay, that's it for today. We'll do this again. I really like them, and I hope you do too.